The evolution of the World Cup. Rewarded to the winners of World Cups, which is held once every 4 years, the FIFA World Cup trophy is indeed the most coveted crown in world football. Here in this video, we will be discussing the evolution of the World Cup, so make sure you watch this video till the end. Here we begin. Since its advent, the FIFA World Cup trophy has been the source of appetite for every football-playing nation in the world, which is more than 200 of them presently, and their epic efforts on the field to win it have evoked some outstanding moments. But being one of the most recognizable sporting emblems in the globe, and accordingly its high value, has furthermore fetched its fair percentage of unwanted engagement to the iconic piece of silverware. This has created the FIFA World Cup trophy, the centerpiece of some fascinating plots off the field as well. To figure out the World Cup's evolutions and growth, we must first evaluate the history of the Olympic Games, permanently seen as the World Cup's rival contest in terms of global reach and importance. You will find that the distinctions is invariably made that the Olympics celebrate not just one sport, but sport as immense recreations. While the World Cup is only the beating of all the footballing nations in the world, and let me tell you that before the United States entry and strong demonstrating not even encompassing the entire world. The World Cup supporters point to the absolute final as the premier pageant in the world sport, with no single sporting match which is competent to fit its global requests. In reality, while they might be opponents now, and they might be attempting to outdo each other, every 2 years, it didn't begin out that way. In fact, the World Cup has the Olympics to thank for its recent iterations and triumph. Because this might surprise, but it was the Olympics that gave birth to the World Cup as we all know it today. When FIFA was launched in 1904, international football and doubly professional football was a phenomenon that was affordable for a few nations. When football was introduced into the Olympic Games back in the summer of 1908, you will find that only some amateurs were embodied. The lack of professional layouts in most nations worldwide sabotaged any endeavor to give rise to a truly international football tournament. But this aspect didn't remain the same when Uruguay won the Olympic football tournaments in 1924 and 1928. FIFA, with then President Jules Rimet as a resourceful driving force, stood up, took notice, and most significantly, set about realizing his ambition. And then, the first FIFA World Cup was to be held back in 1930 in Uruguay, with the obvious politics, or what else. At the soul of the host location's decisions, it was the 100th anniversary of Uruguay's independence, and it was to be made not a great festivity of the game itself, but a stunning political statement. How else to explain it, provided that the Uruguay National Football Association was ready to encircle all travel and accommodation costs which were incurred by participating squads. As even FIFA.com acknowledges, possible gains would be shared with participants and debts taken on by the host nation won Uruguay the first ever World Cup hosting rights. Well, the 1934 competitions was held in fascist Italy under the despotism of Benito Mussolini and Rimet. According to this outstanding independent feature on his life, you will find that he was already criticized for politicizing football. Before the beginning of television and the phenomenon of globalization, the World Cup had encircled itself with politics and money. But just as we can put on the Olympics all the recognitions for introducing the idea of a FIFA World Cup, so Rimet and FIFA can contend all the recognitions for rising the tournament for a small competitions that has only featured a few countries in Montevideo, Uruguay, to the global spectacle which was the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. As ever, context is pivotal, and the eruptions of global business and trade, just as it recreated a massive role in the history of the 1900s, which became a crucial part of the World Cup's continued evolution. Before the business side of the aspects took over though, the sensations of television first came. From 1954 to 1986, it was noted that the number of TV sets worldwide rose more than 20-fold, from a little more than 30 million to more than 650 million. And that's why this has laid the foundations for a groundbreaking moment in football history. After the introductions of television, the first live World Cup games were broadcasted in Europe back in the 1954 tournament, which attained only a handful of audiences due to the low volume of matches demonstrated. Still, the prospect of television and TV advertising was already evident. Let's fast forward a decade and a half, spying a chance to overthrow the world of football and take the yield of the ensuing economic advantages in 1974 was new FIFA president João Havelange, who, upon taking office, twisted his organizations into a contemporary international NGO, putting in place the infrastructure, people, and income-centered perspective of a company. The only thing left to accomplish for the World Cup, which earlier featured 16 national teams, was to extend and expand Avalanche did, unlocking the doors to some of the developing nations with 8 additional slots, which have since been further boosted to an aggregate of 32 participants after France 1998 as examined by Tim Vickery for the World Game. The Avalanche period also saw the opening of the FIFA U17 World Cup, FIFA Women's World Cup, FIFA U20 World Cup, and FIFA Confederations Cup. So, while the beginning of television advertising has led to the increased premiums for all the marketers to get their places onto World Cup TV screens, behind the setting within FIFA itself was a concerted action to pump cash into the World Cup, with political and economic impact once again the main reason behind all these modifications. If ever there was any interesting decisions in the history of world sport, the opinion to host the 1990 World Cup in the US was the one at the time. In hindsight, it was just another intentional plan from Avalanche to carry the game to North American shores, which had yet to be engulfed by football fever. As you all can recognize, this legacy was stunning. Surprisingly, the USA 1994 still hosts the total attendance record, which was over 3.5 million, and the average attendance record, which was 68,991. In addition, the US promotions to the round of 16 for the first time after the year 1930 contributed to soaring TV ratings. The opening of the World Cup in a practicality uncharted region in 1994 was met with huge financial successes, since its incursions into the world leader of commercialized sport and corporate support. FIFA has never looked back. And that's why the World Cup has traveled to Asia back in 2002 and Africa in 2010 when it goes to Russia in 2018 and brings us to the Middle East in 2022. Now let's talk about its highly acclaimed trophy. After the year 1974, football world winners were illustrated with the new editions of the trophy called the FIFA World Cup Trophy. Believe it or not, sculptors from 7 nations sent in 53 recommendations for this new design, but ultimately it was authorized by Italian artist Silvio Gazzaniga. Further, only a selected group of people, which include the heads of the state and former World Cup winners, are permitted to touch the initial FIFA World Cup trophy. It's no longer news. Instead, it is an official fact that the World Cup is now contemplated as an extremely lucrative opportunity for brands and countries alike. This Fox article on Nike and Adidas's brands combat pre-World Cup is currently just part of the fabric. Any sports corporations or any business commodity at all would be criticized for not benefiting from a World Cup year to facilitate its business. And so, you all know that it's only going to get more costly from here. The spending and rights which are associated with the premier world football game have skyrocketed in the past year or so, with the assistance and impact of a few key players. Still, the brand new stadiums that are to be built in host nations are only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to World Cup spending. So that's all for now. Did you find this video useful? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.